For more on this story, we're joined on the line from Washington by Webster Tarpley, author and historian. Mr. Tarpley, thank you so much for being with us. So, Trump has done it again, not only inciting the Democratic camp, but also astonishingly driving a wedge deeper among the Republicans. How do you see that?
Well, we have to realize, first of all, that Donald Trump has just incited the assassination not only of Hillary Clinton, but also of an unknown number of judges or justices on the United States Supreme Court. So this is something that has really not happened at least in the last century or so, or century and a half, in United States politics. It's a direct incitement and instigation of homicidal violence. This is a candidate hinting at murder. And I think what people have to understand is that Hillary Clinton obviously is not an attractive figure, and she does have a serious warmonger problem, but Trump's warmonger problem is actually much worse than Mrs. Clinton's, in the sense that Trump has shown a fascination with the use of nuclear weapons, which Mrs. Clinton really never has. And that would mean for Trump, his security briefings, the briefers tell us that he's always asking, how can I use nuclear weapons? Why can't I use nuclear weapons? Stop telling me I can't use nuclear weapons. He's totally obsessed with this, and that means, as he has said, nuclear weapons in Europe, nuclear weapons in the Middle East. So this is horrendous. The other thing that Trump is calling for, I think, is what we've known here traditionally as the October surprise. In other words, a horrendous terror event in October or late September, which would stampede voters in favor of a candidate who poses as a strong man and a dictator, and that would, of course, be Trump. It's actually part of an old NATO concept called the strategy of tension, which Trump is using, and he's actually requested his allies out in the world, whoever they are, to bring in cyber attacks on the U.S., including revelations, but I think also other cyber attacks. So a strategy of chaos and confusion with the idea of scaring people to the point where they would say, well, the only thing that's going to help us here is a dictator. So this is very dangerous for the world. Also, for Iran, remember that Trump is a candidate who wants to end the U.S.-Iran deal, which I think has functioned very well. And Trump has lately been screaming about a very minor event, the delivery of $400 million by the U.S. to Iran. This was a debt. It's a very small sum. It's not a big deal. And instead, Trump has been screaming as if this were the end of the world. And, of course, his Islamophobia proposal, his demand to ban Muslims from the United States, absolutely un-American, absolutely unacceptable.
So Mr. Tarpley, considering all that we have seen from Trump so far during his campaign, his latest comments, and the way that he has managed to divide even the Republicans themselves, with some of them calling for him to step down, saying they do not want him to nominate them in the presidential elections in November. Do you think he will eventually make it to the race and stand to nominate the Republicans? Very briefly, if you may.
It's very hard to tell. It's going to be very hard for Trump to win the election without this terrorist outside event, right, the October surprise. The other thing people should realize about Trump is that in terms of his political philosophy, he is a fascist. In other words, he conforms very closely to the ideological points of people like Mussolini and Hitler. The other side of Trump is that he is mentally disturbed. This is a profoundly sick personality. He is mentally ill. Some people say he has Alzheimer's. Others say, no, he's a narcissist, or that he has obsessive compulsive disorder. But a profoundly troubled mind, which, of course, must never be allowed to get control of the nuclear launch codes. The general consensus here is that if Trump gets the nuclear launch codes, world civilization could be at an end. And this is a very, very scary thing.
Mr. Tarpley, thank you so much for talking to us. That was Webster Tarpley, author and historian, joining us on the line from Washington.